And I realized like, okay, I want to go into sports performance because this is really, really fun. I was able to build those relationships, provide that high level of service in the most time efficient way possible. I also coach a lot of coaches now because that's what I do. But they're looking at your content, seeing if you're the one who can solve their problems. Telling people in real life who you are and what you do, that is number one priority. How do you create your avatar of who you're marketing to? If you're constantly focused on acquisition, maybe you're acquiring the wrong people. I am just like you. I am able to overcome this, and I can teach you how to do that too. I still struggle with ADHD. This is how I manage it. These are the tools that I use.
Hey, can I ask a little favor? If you've gotten any value out of the Coach Kettles podcast, if you've enjoyed the guests that we've had on, the simple and free way to show that support is to hit that subscribe button. And my commitment to you is to go out and find the best coaches, do the best interviews, pull out the tips, the tricks, so that you can create the coaching business of your dreams. So if you wouldn't mind, hit that subscribe button. That allows us to continue doing what we do. Have a great day. My friend, welcome to the Coach Kettles podcast. We are in season 4. My name is Trevor Whitwer, and today's guest was absolutely on fire. Today I had the pleasure of speaking with Paul O'Neid, who does a lot of different things, but the main thing he does is he runs an incredible coaching business. He deadlifts over 700 pounds. He has a six-pack. His coaching business does over $500,000. Yep, and he's going to teach you how to do it too. So in today's episode, we unpack his entire business. One of the main focuses in his business is relationships in the online world. So we go through the tricks and the tactics that he uses in order to make sure that he is building incredible relationships with his clients across his entire coaching staff. And the cool thing is his retention rate is almost triple what the average is in the industry. So he is going to be one that you want to pay attention to. I hope you enjoy this episode with Paul O'Neid. Paul, welcome to the Coach Kettles podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Dude, super stoked to have you on. I'm excited to hear really more about your journey. We missed you at the Super Coach Summit because you happened to just like pull your quad off of your patella, like most people do.
I wouldn't recommend exploding your knees, but I'm here, part of being a coach is going through the journey so that you can guide people along their own. Now I know how to not do that. So that's good.
Was it just like a freak thing where it's just like, wrong place, wrong time, wrong angle, too much force? Or was there like actually something you feel like you could have done differently?
A little column A, a little column B. I battled knee pain and knee tendonitis for my entire powerlifting career, even back to when I was playing college basketball, college football. It's just something I always dealt with. But that being said, this injury, the way I put it is, you don't have a heart attack because your arteries were clogged yesterday. But at the same time, I legitimately fell. So it's like, I lost my balance in the bottom of the squat and my hips shot back, my knee shot forward. So could I have potentially fallen and not torn anything? Maybe, but I also had 750 pounds on my back.
I was gonna say, like, what happens with do you have spotters on both sides? I'm not super familiar with the power lifting world. So
there's 5 spotters. So you have 2 spotters on each side and 1 spotter behind you. But in my situation, I lost my balance. And before I even had the opportunity, I started to push and both my quads went. So I dumped the bar behind me.
Mm-hmm.
So no one's saving that, so it's, if you're able to stay with the bar, usually the spotters will catch you and everything's good. The other thing is I've been competing for a really long time, and the lift that I hurt myself on is something I've done 30 or 40 times in my life. So I don't think anyone expected me to fail.
Right.
So
it's interesting.
A lot of factors. I've talked about this a little bit on my YouTube channel, but in a situation like this, you could look for any and all reasons as to why it happened and everything like that. But at the end of the day, it happened, and I kind of have to play the hand I'm dealt at this point.
Right. Yeah. Which sounds like things are on the mend and you're healing quickly. So you'll be back to
things are great. I'm like 4 or 5 weeks ahead of schedule in terms of rehab, and already back walking 10,000 steps, and we're 8 weeks and 4 days.
Right. Yeah. You'll be back to 700 in no time. That number, I am not built to be a weightlifter. I am built to be a basketball player. I could throw things, like I could jump really high. Like that is what I'm built for. Squatting 700 pounds is definitely not what I'm built for.
Yeah, I'm also like I'll be 37 this year, and I've been competing for over 15 years. So at this point, I'm looking at return to activity. I've told my wife like my goal is to be able to play with our kids on the floor when we have kids. So I don't need to be 250 pounds and squatting 800 pounds to do that.
Right. Well, I mean, all of that kind of leads to where you're at today. So let's kind of let's go through this journey a little bit. And, what was your first kind of foray into this world of health and fitness, strength conditioning?
Yeah. So I think I have a little bit more of a roundabout way of getting to where I am now than most people. So I started off during my undergrad, fell in love with strength and conditioning during a rehab after a knee surgery, funny enough. And I realized like, okay, I want to go into sports performance because this is really, really fun. And upon graduation, I found who was the best collegiate strength coach in the nation, who won Strength Coach of the Year in 2009. And it was a gentleman named Ron McKeefery at the University of South Florida. He's actually the head strength coach of Alabama right now.
Okay.
And I emailed him, and his assistant, Frank Wintrink, who was the former head at UCLA, emailed me back. Was like, yeah, for sure. Come work for us, be an intern, unpaid position, 3 months. It's like,
So did you just go like on their school website, found like the people that were part of the strength conditioning and just like, oh, email, cool, send one out?
Yeah, I emailed everyone on the strength staff. And I was like, I want to come work for you. How do I do that? And they had an internship program. I ended up being a part of a 14-person internship program. We worked starting at 5 a.m, and we weren't done until everyone was done in the evening. And I did that for 3 months. I joke, I was cleaning it. I basically did a 3-month internship in gym cleaning with a side of strength and conditioning. And then from there, I applied for my master's degree and actually started a master's degree at South Florida in strength and conditioning, or in exercise science.
Yep.
And then before I finished that degree, I got a GA job in Pittsburgh at Robert Morris University. So I left my master's early, moved to Pittsburgh, did a master's in sports management, and then essentially was in a position where I could go for a full-time job, but I made a promise to my father that I would finish my first degree. Luckily for me, a good friend of mine was now the head strength coach at the University of Tampa. So he hired me to be his associate head strength coach. So I moved back down.
Pause for a second. You got your master's in sports management, not in like kinesiology
I got both.
Okay.
I got both.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So I moved back to Tampa to work at U Tampa while I finished my master's in exercise science at USF.
Got it.
By the time I finished my master's at USF, I'm Canadian, so my student visa essentially expires 30 days to the day you graduate. So I had to either find a full-time job or leave the country. And at that point, the only full-time jobs I was being offered, like VCU was an option. It was $33,000 a year. Georgetown was $31,000 a year. And while I would have loved to, go work with Mike or go work with Tim, I got a job offer at basically the Harvard of Canada, Queen's University, to be their first head strength coach. It was a $55,000 a year job, working 70 to 90 hours a week. But I had my own department. I had interns. I taught a class. It was, for all intents and purposes, my dream job. Throughout all this process, I also started competing in powerlifting. And while I was at Queen's for a year, terrible experience in terms of, work-life balance and what they expected of me versus my compensation and the support that I was getting from the administration, everything like that. I actually left coaching entirely. I quit and I said, I don't want to be a strength coach anymore. Went into the private sector and started working as a disability rehab specialist, essentially coordinating people's rehab plans while they're transitioning from disability and return to work. And I loved that job, actually. I did it for 6 years. but I still loved coaching. So I started coaching powerlifters on the side on the lane. And one powerlifter turned into 5 turned into 10 turned into 20 turned into 60 at the end of it. And I was making, and at that point, I was making twice as much online coaching as I was in my full-time job. And I kind of looked at myself and I was like, you need to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hesitant because I'd never been in an entrepreneurship situation. I'd always had a salary. And although I was entrepreneurial by nature because I'd always had a side hustle of some kind,
Mm-hmm.
I'd never gone all in on it. So I asked my mom, both my parents are real estate brokers. So they're entrepreneurs by nature. My dad's done, massive real estate deals and property management stuff. And my mom said, listen, you've never failed in anything before in your life. You're not going to start now. And if there's one person you could bet on, it should be yourself. I said, okay, that's a pretty good deal. I started Master Athletic Performance. I started Master Athletic Performance in 2015, officially went full-time in 2001, like right in the heart of the pandemic here in Canada last 3 years, basically.
Right.
So right in the heart of that. And since then, I was making, I think Master Athletic Performance generated $140,000 in 2001. In 2023, so 2 years later, we topped over 500,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did really well.
So, I mean, let's go back to just like the beginning phases. You were competing in powerlifting at the time. Is that right?
Yep.
And so was it just you kind of being in that space and being in that culture and being in that community that allowed you to kind of like start attracting, these other...
Part of it was that. Part of it was like the sports performance background. So everybody knew I was a strength and conditioning coach. The other part was I was really fucking good. Like when I was competing in powerlifting in 2014, 2015, 2016, when I squatted 800 for the first time at 220 pounds, I was only the sixth person. Like only 6 people were ever stronger than me ever.
Oh, wow.
And then in 2016, I had a big total at 242 pounds in the 110 kilo weight class. So I was in the top 10 in 2 different weight classes all time. So not only did I have the sports performance and education background, people also saw that I had the acumen in the sport to help people get to that level. So I started coaching more. Luckily for me too, I've always been very good at nurturing my community. So people who've worked with me in the past, people who are working with me currently, I always stay in really close touch, and I'm very, very, very focused on building relationships. So a lot of those former athletes that I had coached, some of them went on to, play in the NFL, 3 or 4 Super Bowl winners. I still keep in contact with those people, and I've been able, one of them I helped with his nutrition. I did a couple, like 5 or 6 of my CFL guys. I coached them for a number of years. So I was still coaching athletes online at the time as well. So it was just a matter of the industry kind of growing and then me having the accolades both personally and professionally to be able to market myself.
Right. And then COVID probably kind of accelerated that a little bit because now people can't be in necessarily anywhere.
Yeah, that was a tough one. I think the only reason we were able to accelerate it is because I had a strong foothold in the American market.
Okay.
In Canada, like all of our gyms were closed for like two full years here in Canada. So that's also when my nutrition coaching business ramped up, and I put more emphasis on the nutrition side of the business. That ramped up a lot. In 2022, in May, my wife decided, she was my girlfriend at the time, my fiance at the time, actually, she was working as a nutrition coach for another company. She decided to go off on her own and come under our company. And at that point, she was making, I think, $2,000 a month. And now she makes $15,000, all just coaching. And so we have myself, Olivia. We also have a coach named Francesco, Nat Galloway, Carly McInnes, Matilda Ramos, and then Jaden Licarius. So we've got 7 coaches under our umbrella now.
Awesome. So when you started, what was the model? Was it just like a monthly? How much was it a month?
You're gonna laugh. So I started coaching online for $50 a month.
And this is like one-to-one, like you are programming for them.
Yep.
Right.
I was writing programs, usually would write 4-week blocks of programming because at the time, the philosophy, I would do 3 up, 1 down. So I would write a 3-week program, 1 week deload, and then we would revamp the program every month. But I was reviewing videos every day, talking to my clients every day. And that was primarily over Facebook Messenger and email. And then that transitioned to mostly through WhatsApp.
Yep.
And essentially, as I progressed in my career and as my roster grew, I scaled my prices accordingly, admittedly charging much less than I was worth, in my opinion, especially with my background and my education. I think when I went full time, I was charging $300 a month for training and nutrition together.
Okay.
And these are Canadian dollars. So $300 a month Canadian is actually about just over 200 USD.
I was going to say, yeah, 250.
210. I guess 210. Because you got our exchange rate's like 65%.
Oof.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very low cost. And as I've branched out in my own business and I got into the more education space, into the mentorship space, I've scaled my pricing to allow me to coach less people, but still maintain a very high quality of service while I go do those other things.
So, I mean, at your peak, when you were kind of doing some volume stuff, how many clients did you have at one point, like that you were programming for?
I got up to 80 at one point, but that
just
was
you.
Just me. You. And that was too much. I felt at that point my service started to dwindle. And then I backed it down to 65, 70. And if I was only coaching personally, I think that would be totally reasonable for me with the systems and processes that I developed. Because if you remember, I built my online business while I was working full time.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all of these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
So I was able to build those relationships, provide that high level of service in the most time efficient way possible. So my coaching model evolved out of necessity. So to be able to have these ongoing conversations, update programs, and do all those things within 15 to 20 minutes a week per client, even at 80 clients, that's 160 hours a month.
Right.
Sorry, that's 80 clients at an hour. At an hour a client, that's 80 hours a month. That's only 20 hours a week.
Right.
And then I'm working 40 hours, that's 60 hours plus a little admin time here and there.
Right. Were there any systems that you obviously started at the beginning was just kind of like, there's probably no systems. You were just kind of writing, delivering, responding. How did those evolve? How did your systems evolve and kind of what do they look like now?
So right now, shameless plug, we use Coach Catalyst. But it's always been through Google Sheets. Initially I was writing spreadsheets and sending the actual spreadsheet file.
Yeah.
And then the client would fill it out, save it, and send me that file back.
Right.
And all of our communication was through Facebook Messenger. At that point, it was a little bit through text as well. Then I realized, okay, I have to have separation of church and state. So I wanted to, personal communication as personal, business as business. So I went all the way then to Facebook and WhatsApp. Then eventually only to WhatsApp. those Excel spreadsheets turned into Google Sheets, and we were doing Google Sheets forever. And personally, that was a hesitation for me. And it's something I chatted with Cav and Kane about, was like, I didn't feel service delivery was our problem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we talked about going to an app, I didn't feel the Google Sheets were limiting our ability to impact our clients.
Right.
Because we were still tracking metrics and doing all those things within the Google Sheet. But the next evaluation from there was, well, now I have coaches working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to make sure that we're standardizing the level of service coach to coach to coach. And so it was important for me also then, if I'm referring clients who come to work with myself or come to work with Olivia to other coaches, we want to make sure that we have some sort of oversight to make sure that, you know, that level of service is being maintained and upheld.
Right.
So that was a huge draw for us to transition over to Coach Catalyst, and not to mention the white labeling of the app, the professionalism came up, the ability to have that community within the app.
Right.
All of these things just made our service delivery so much more robust and all encompassing that the perceived value on the side of the client was much, much higher.
Right.
I've personally never found, and I think this is a, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an issue of riches by experience. Like that whole idea of, oh, it takes me so long to do check-ins and it takes me so long to talk to clients. I'm very good at choosing my words and being efficient with the messaging that I'm giving clients. So like what might take someone 10 minutes to communicate, I can do in 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, I went from sending text updates, you know, either through WhatsApp or email, to doing Loom videos.
Right.
So I can speak much quicker than I can type.
Right.
That drastically decreased my delivery time and increased the perceived value for the client, because they can hear my voice and see my face. They feel much more connected to me.
Good.
Now we can do all of that through Coach Catalyst. Add into that, you know, automated reminders for check-ins, all the forms within the apps, all that stuff just makes things much, much more seamless. And you're able to, again, standardize that level of care from client to client, regardless of roster size. Where I think a lot of people get handcuffed is they spend a lot of time on the minutia and less time on what's actually going to make a meaningful change. So what I mean by that is, say you're doing a check-in with a client and you're collecting all this data. So we know in Coach Catalyst, for example, we can track any amount of metrics that we want. You have a client who's looking to get stronger or looking to improve body composition. I don't need to comment on every single one of his metrics or her metrics to say, hey, great job tracking your blood pressure this week. Blah, blah. It's like, no, blood pressure was good. Resting blood glucose was good. Fatigue seems to be managed well. Body weight is trending in this way. I see that on your check-in form, you mentioned these barriers. Here's how to address them, and kind of just go through that in a very seamless fashion. 3-4 minutes, you can communicate a lot of information speaking to that person. And they feel so heard and so connected that, you know, the level of care they feel that they're getting is far and away beyond what they're used to.
And has your market still stayed as kind of power lifters, or has it evolved now as the business has evolved?
So one thing about power lifters is they're very cheap. And I say that kind of in jest, but it's true. Like, you're dealing with people in their early 20s to early 30s, maybe not necessarily established in their careers. So as my pricing has increased, the change in clientele has been there. That being said, I still do coach a number of lifters who take their programming and coaching seriously and are heavily invested in the process. But my interests have also changed, especially over the last 3 to 4 years. I semi-retired from powerlifting about 4 years ago. I did a bodybuilding show. So I actually started coaching a number of bodybuilders at that point. About 8 years ago, I guess we're looking at 2016, 2017, I started taking my nutrition much more seriously. My body composition changed a lot more. So then I started coaching a lot more physique or aesthetic oriented clients as well. So my clientele has kind of changed as I've changed, because as I've changed, I've started talking about things that I'm interested in or that I'm focusing on at that time. I think the reason I started off with powerlifting is, like, if you looked at my Instagram from 10 years ago, it was literally just a training log. It's like, oh, here's Paul squatting 500 again.
Right.
Here's him, doing whatever. It's like, all right, well, he probably knows how to coach strong people, so I'm going to reach out if I want to be strong.
Right.
Now it's, well, Paul's talking about healthy, sustainable habits. He's talking about managing a schedule and still, deadlifting 700 pounds and still having a six pack. Like that's a lot different of a demographic than just someone who wants to compete in powerlifting.
Mm-hmm.
And I also coach a lot of coaches now.
Right.
Right. Because that's what I do.
Okay, now this is what I've been asking for. Listen, when you're a thick, fit girl like me who loves to eat and lift, the scale isn't always your friend at tracking your progress. And that's why I'm so excited to tell you about the Zozo Fit app. This is the part I love. Right from your smartphone, it takes a 3D scan of your body, then delivers you a 360 view of your body with all of the measurements and body fat percentage. How easy is that? You can also use the calorimetric comparison feature to track your different scans over time. Now, this is a great way of tracking your progress and creating a workout plan that addresses your goals.
So, I mean, has social media always been kind of something that you have liked doing? And so you kind of just use it as a log, which then allowed, or were we using this as kind of a business tool to drive lead generation?
It's never really been a business tool for me until more recently. And it's funny because as it's become more of a business tool, I find less and less enjoyment in it.
Mm-hmm.
When it was just a training log, it was kind of just bringing people along for the journey.
Right.
And at that point, the journey was pretty exciting. Now the journey is a little bit of a different exciting because I'm chronicling returning back from an injury, but it's still like my personal Instagram is still just me being me. So if you want to see videos of me training, sharing information that I think is interesting, my wife and I doing husband and wife things, or our dogs doing silly dog things, you're going to like following me. But then I started to realize, okay, this is a much more powerful tool than what I'm using it for.
Mm-hmm.
And this shift happened I would say in 2000, I guess we're 2024 now. So it would have been, 2022. I went on the Table Talk podcast with Dave Tate. And at that point I was like, I need to make social media more of a focus. So I hired an editor and I started making a lot more videos specifically on business development, coaching, that sort of thing. And I really saw an uptick in my business at that point because I used social media for what it was, in that I have the eyes because I accumulated an audience through my accolades.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm trying to really get those people who are following me, who are interested in the specific things that I do, to raise their hand and realize like, hey, Paul can solve my problems. He's not just lifting heavy weights. And that's when things started to really shift for me in terms of social media. I still get, we'll say, fatigued or bored with social media because if I didn't have an online business, I probably wouldn't have any social media.
Mm-hmm.
But I absolutely see the utility in it, and I'm much more intentful with it now.
So, I mean, you're evolved into doing some mentorship and that kind of stuff with coaches. I mean, how do you talk to coaches now about this aspect of it? And let's say maybe they don't have the accolades, right? Or they don't have this kind of like following from things they've done. Do you still feel like this is a valuable use of someone's time to spend creating, editing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the editing piece, I will say no. Like if you can outsource anything in your business, it would be editing videos because it takes so friggin' long. Mm-hmm. And you can pay someone $15, $20 per video and it's fine. You factor it into your cost of acquisition and you're good to go. The important piece to remember about social media is the purpose of social media has changed for coaches and business owners over the last 3 years. 3 years ago, you could post something on social media have a buttload of replies, and sell to a client probably within 21 days.
Mhm.
Probably a 21-day turnaround time between initial communication and time of sale. What we're seeing now, because there are just so many more coaches and the algorithm has changed to favor a more pay-for-play model, organic traffic is way, way down, and people are much more discerning
Mhm.
with how they purchase coaching online. So your social media is no longer a customer acquisition channel, like top of funnel. What it is a nurture channel.
Mhm.
So your top of funnel now becomes things like email marketing, things like webinars, free resources, things that can get people off of social media and into your emails. But once you have them on your social media, you can still consider them a cold lead, but they're looking at your content, seeing if you're the one who can solve their problem. So I really see it as a nurture pathway of, okay, I have these eyes. I need to make sure that the right people are seeing my stuff. And it's not necessarily going to be, oh, I post something, I go viral, I get 20 new followers or 30 new followers or 100 new followers. It's, I'm going to post something so that my existing followers see it,
Mhm.
and they're more interested in what I have to do. They see me as the person who can solve their problems. So if you're going to operate an online business, you have to have an online presence of some kind, social media being the easiest of all the platforms to use. But that doesn't mean you stop posting blogs on your website. That doesn't mean you stop sending weekly newsletters or twice weekly, or, myself, I send newsletters every other day. So I send a newsletter. So like day 1 is Coach's Corner. Day 2 is Master Athletic, Coach's Corner, Master Athletic. And I alternate. So I'm writing newsletters every day. I'm just sending them for opposite sites.
Mhm.
And then we're still doing, lead magnets. We're still doing all different types of things to try and get people either in front of us in webinars or Q&As, or into our email list so that we can nurture them with that. So social media has stopped being a direct customer acquisition channel and started being more of a nurture channel. And I think if we look at it that way, it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit.
Right.
Because it's like, I don't have to sell here. I can just add value.
Right.
And then I can sell once I get you off of it.
So with the coach that is maybe more limited, one person show, what would you say are like the big rocks? Like if you could only focus on a couple of them, what are you guiding them towards?
Social media wise, or just in general?
In general, let's just talk like top of funnel lead generation and, moving them at least to sales conversations.
So the first thing that I think people need to hear is that you while your business exists in an online sense, you exist in a physical sense.
Mm.
People forget, like, you have friends, you have family. Tell them about what you do. Offer them your service. Likely you're a personal trainer and have worked with multiple people in the past. Even if it's 10 or 15 people, go tell those people about what you're doing online. If you're ordering a coffee at Starbucks and the barista asks you how your day is going, tell her how, or him, or her or him, or they, or whatever. Say, I'm really excited about my business. I've been really having a great time building it. And they're going to ask, well, what do you do for work? And you're going to say, oh, I coach online. I work with some amazing people on their training and nutrition. Are you going to sell coaching to the barista? Probably not. It's actually happened. I had one of my mentees sell coaching to the barista.
That's awesome.
Which is awesome. But what it's going to do, it's going to help you practice talking about what you do. I actually had one of my current mentees was visiting her husband at work, and 3 of the women in his office were talking about how they wish they had a workplace health and wellness program. And she was like, oh, interesting. Like, I could do that for you guys. And so now she runs a workplace health and wellness program for her husband's office. And so that's just a really easy example of first things first, tell anyone and everyone about what you do and who you help. Fantastic. If you look at all of the followers that you have on social media as like a puddle, you need to start dropping ripples in there and letting people know. Because as those ripples pass, oh, you need a coach? Oh, man, Paul's fantastic. You should go talk to Paul. Well, how do you know Paul? Oh, I follow him on Instagram. Right? So telling people in real life who you are and what you do, that is number 1 priority. Number 2, in terms of marketing and lead acquisition, you do have to have an online presence. So creating a social media profile that immediately tells people who you are, what you do, and who you help. Perfect. Start posting some content that is valuable for your ideal client, which you should absolutely spend defining. And cultivate conversations. So people who like your posts and you don't know who they are, send them a message. Say, hey, thanks for the support. What'd you like about my post? These are things that initially people will feel very salesy about, but when you reframe it as you're not selling anything, you're just asking people for feedback.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, well, I could do that, right?
Right.
They can start conversations. And the more conversations you have, the more you'll realize, okay, what do people actually want to hear from me? Are these people actually interested in what I'm providing? Do they want coaching? All this sort of stuff. You may get a couple clients there. The next is asking for referrals. I think this is something that people miss as well. If you never ask the question, the answer is always no. So if you're looking to get more clients and you're already coaching a couple clients that are awesome, just ask your awesome clients to refer you more awesome clients.
I'd recommend this to any coaches or even clinicians out there that are looking to build a business around a product that they already really believe in.
As a brand new user, just being sold on the streamline of being able to put everything in a centralized location, anyone that is just fumbling with Google Sheets to Facebook messages, group messaging, text messaging.
For anybody that wants to be able to coach their clients, many times you use different tools and resources, and when you're trying to manage that, even on a Google Sheet or on regular technology, you're limited on duplicating the data over and over.
I think if I'm going to, recommend the app for anyone, it's going to be myself. If I want to take my business to the next level, so definitely looking to do that in the near future here. Everybody can really benefit from it. I use it in the rehab sphere, but I also utilize it in the training thing. You can do the same thing with nutrition, right? There's so many uses for it.
For everybody, coaches, clinicians, anyone that kind of works in the industry, chiros, PTs, trainers.
This is one simple solution that we can create to all of our users and all our clients.
So if you want to create a way to systematize your business so you can scale, I have not seen a better product for that.
Do you
Fantastic.
So the referral thing's always interesting, right? And so do you have any good strategies around it? Because I think some people are like they don't want to be so maybe upfront with like, hey, can you just send me your friends?
Okay, I get that. So number one, don't do that because that's really shitty. It's like, hey, you're paying me money. Can you go get other people to pay me money?
Right.
That sounds shitty. I like my script or what I like to say is like, wait for them to give you an unsolicited testimonial of some kind. Like you're going through their check-in and they mention like, man, I'm really enjoying working with you. I'm making some great progress. Use that as a key. Be like, I'm super glad to be part of your journey, excited about what you've accomplished. I've really enjoyed working with you. Do you have any friends that you think would benefit from coaching the same way you have? That's it. They might say no. They might say yes. You're not asking for anything.
Right.
We also have a referral program with our clients. So if any of our clients refer us clients and that client subscribes, we'll give the referrer 20% off the next month. So all of our clients know that we really love working with them and we want more people like them. So that is something that we do offer our clients and they're aware of it.
Do you make them aware of that? Because so I've kind of went back and forth a little bit on this referral thing, right? Like sometimes like if you give someone a free month or half off, like it's just hitting their credit card every month. And whether I got charged $300 or whether I got charged $250, like I probably wouldn't necessarily notice on my credit card all that much. And so do you do anything additional? Are you drinking straight out of a 2-liter bottle of soda? Right.
I am.
I love that.
It's zero.
It's zero.
Dr. Pepper zero.
All right. So, do you like send them a quick message and say, hey, thanks for the referral. We'll take 20% off your next kind of thing so that there's a little bit of that.
We let them know that the program is in place. And then when we invoke the program and give them their 20%, we'll let them know, hey, thank you so much for referring so-and-so. We really appreciate it.
Right.
And we love working with you. So hopefully if they live up to your standard, will be another client that we love working with.
Right.
The other thing that often gets maybe overlooked or not touched on is like, just be a really good, should I swear?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Just be a really good fucking coach, man.
Yeah.
Like it is so easy to just be a really good fucking coach who gives a shit and cares and creates great relationships, people will want to refer you clients without even talking to them about it, because they'll want to tell all of their friends how awesome you've been. And if you're not getting referrals, that is a fantastic KPI that you're not doing a good enough job, in my opinion.
I love that. So your business has evolved, right? Where now you are not the one that's coaching all of the clients. And so what are some of the challenges? Actually, I want to back this up a little bit. So coaches kind of take a few different routes as they're starting to scale. We can scale in a few different ways. We can scale with humans, so we can bring on other coaches, assistant coaches, to start taking on more of the clients because we can't handle them anymore. Other coaches will go to more of a one-to-many model, or they'll have a select group of clients they work with at a higher ticket and then have kind of a lower ticket where they push people into a group. And so you've kind of chosen to go the add more humans to the business route, which both scenarios have their own challenges. Was that a conscious decision, or was that just kind of like, hey, I'm so busy, I need to bring someone on to help take care of some more people?
It was okay. So first of all, the core values that I have related to actual coaching, relationship comes first. So I don't like a group model simply from the fact that I don't get to create those relationships, and those relationships are really what excite me about coaching.
Right.
So it didn't fit with me right off the bat. It's like it just didn't vibe. So there's one. The next is with adding coaches. It kind of happened organically. Like when I brought Liv on, my wife, she scaled really quickly, and I was not expecting it at all.
And she came on and took over the nutrition aspect.
She just started coaching. She started coaching.
Everything.
She had been personal training, but never done training online.
Got it.
So obviously at that point I was mentoring. So she joined in our group mentorship. She started implementing some of the things that we were working on. And this is actually pretty cool for me because I didn't directly mentor her. Like I didn't say like, hey babe, like this is what you need to do. She just took everything I was saying and ran with it, which for me was amazing to watch because I saw what she was able to accomplish. So she started adding a number of clients. Then we got to a point where we're getting a number of inquiries. I had also been mentoring a number of young coaches. Nat and Carly were the first two that we added on. Young coaches still scaling their businesses. Carly's a physiotherapist, so she's mainly doing like rehab type of clients. Nat is a former British Army veteran, so he does a lot of first responders, a lot of service members. So different markets, different niches.
Right.
Then we actually hired Francesco, who was Olivia's boss at her previous company. We brought him on because he was looking to transition to making more money per client because the previous company was a very large revenue split. And then from there, we kind of stayed status quo until more recently when my mentorship started increasing. I needed to back down my clients. I didn't want to let them go. So I needed a coach who could more closely mimic my skill set. And so we brought on Jaden. Similar situation for Olivia. She's generating too many leads, can't take them all, needs a coach to mimic her skill set. We bring on Matilda. Now we've got our 7 coaches. And to be fair, Matilda and Jaden, they far exceed us in certain capacities. Like they're freaking awesome coaches. So we have a very different revenue split model because I want to incentivize our coaches to bring on their own clients. So what we do is we have a split revenue model where if they bring on their own clients, the only split that we take is operating expenses. But if we give them the referrals, then we take a larger split.
Is that an accounting nightmare?
No.
No,
they just tag. So like when they send us their monthly invoices, they just tag which clients came from where. And then with the spreadsheet that we have, it automatically calculates the payouts.
So these coaches are essentially operating as like independent contractors.
Yeah. And the cool part for us is, this might be a little boring for people, but tax wise. So because most of our clients are American, I get charged tax on tax I don't collect. So I get charged sales tax on tax. So our Canadian coaches, I have to pay them sales tax that I'm not collecting, that's the nightmare.
Because it was sold essentially in US dollar.
I am the coach's client. Their clients aren't their clients. Their clients are my clients. So that's the nightmare. But for me, it's just like, okay, you generated this much revenue,
right?
10% across the board, and an additional percentage for these 10 people or 9 people or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So, do you though feel like a level of responsibility for making sure that these guys and gals have enough leads that their books of business are full or growing, or do they kind of operate as kind of like they're under your umbrella, but they're their own entity?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. So I do want them to promote themselves. I do want them to be their own entities and build their businesses, but we all operate with the same core values. And it's my job as head of the business to create those systems and that infrastructure in the background to make sure that they're able to leverage. So all of our coaches have their own lead magnets. I created the funnels in our CRM. So like they create the lead magnets, I create the funnel, I help them promote it, and so on and so forth.
Right.
Where we're running into roadblocks, so when I talk about issues at scale, is now we're in a situation where I would like to start running paid ads. But when you look at the structure of a paid ad, if we factor in cost of acquisition, because I'm only making a percentage of their revenue, I can't make back cost of acquisition in a reasonable time frame to make sense to run an ad for a client who isn't mine or Olivia's.
Right.
So we have to look at our offer and say, okay, how do we revamp this offer to be able to accommodate for cost of acquisition? Do we charge a down payment? Do we increase monthly rate? How do we go about doing that? And we haven't necessarily landed on an answer yet, but it is a problem that we are running into.
So what is
do we charge 3 months up front? And,
right. What is the revenue model right now? Like, what is your current model for coaching?
I am not comfortable disclosing that.
Okay.
I will say it is very, very, very favorable. The coach takes a large majority of the revenue as compared to what we do.
And not necessarily that, but like what if I was going to invest in coaching with the organization, am I at $500 a month, $700 a month, $200 a month?
Gotcha. Yeah. It's actually different per coach. So I let my coaches establish their own pricing structure.
Yeah.
Which brings with it its own limitations as well. So if you're going to want to work with me, you're going to pay more. If you want to work with Liv, you're going to pay a little less than me. If you want to work with Matilda or Jaden, it's a little less than Liv and I. And if you want to work with Nat, Carly, and Francesco, it's a little bit less than that. And that's their choice to market themselves in that way.
Got it.
I do make sure that because I am the head of the business and Liv is the head of the business, that our prices are always going to be the highest, the most elite level of service. But that's simply as a result of experience and credentials.
Right. Okay. So you allow them to kind of, so how do you, like if a lead comes in, right, and your book is full, Liv's book is full, and they came in from your media, do you kind of like vet them and be like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this person? Because I mean, that can become a problem too, right?
For sure. So something that we implemented with our CRM is when someone books a sales call with the company, they have the opportunity. So they put in their name, phone number, email, all that stuff. And then they can select which coach they're interested in working with. And if they don't select a coach, well, regardless if they select a coach or not, there's a number of qualifying questions that happen after that. And if they don't select a coach, it gets triaged to me. And then I determine who they're going to fit with based on their goals, their budget, and all that sort of stuff. But if they select the coach that they want to work with, that coach actually, their calendar is linked to the intake form.
Yep.
And so they're automatically able to book a call. So they fill out the form, they're able to book a call with the coach. The cool part for me is like the questions that we chose, like what are your goals? What are the barriers? Are you interested in competing? What's your budget? And what's your area of interest? I know based on all those questions, which coach they're going to fit well with.
Right.
Right. If they're a male bodybuilder, I'm not going to send them to Nat because he doesn't coach male bodybuilders.
Right.
And that's where, for me, the fact that all of our coaches are a little bit different.
Yeah.
It makes that triage process a little bit easier.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense. So for you guys, I mean, as far as the model goes, are you a kind of month to month? Are you a 3-month commitment, 6-month commitment? Are you down payment plus monthly? What does that look like?
I have always favored MRR, like monthly recurring revenue, for our coaches because it makes it so much more simple to do your personal accounting.
Right.
It's also much more reliable. So we go month to month, but we do require a 3-month minimum commitment.
Okay.
So we have them sign a terms of service that mandates a 3-month minimum commitment. Very, 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 very rarely will we have a client push back on that or try to break that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, because of our model, it's more of a good faith agreement because they can ultimately just cut payment, like hey, stop payment on Stripe.
Right. Yeah.
That never happens, thankfully.
Right.
But that's another question of, okay, if we do change the offer to 3 months paid up front and then month to month after that, that might be a great way to recoup cost of acquisition. But then I'm asking, if I pay $500 for a lead and I say, hey, Jaden, you're not going to get paid for the first 2 months of coaching with this client because I need my marketing dollars back.
Right.
That doesn't really work.
Yeah, that's tough too.
The one area I will say has been the biggest challenge is in creating the brand when marketing multiple coaches with different ideal clients. How do you create your avatar of who you're marketing to?
Right.
And that's something that I racked my brain really, really hard on as to how do we write the copy? How do we market to an individual across so many different niches? And what helped me big time is instead of looking at how different our clients were from coach to coach, I tried to look for the common denominators between all of them. And for us, the common denominator was the psychology. Every single person who wants to work with us is looking to pursue the best version of themselves. And I was like, okay, well, our motto, our tagline is raising the bar. So I was like, well, you're raising the bar for yourself. So the marketing and the messaging for our company is we want to work with people who want to raise the bar for themselves. And that doesn't matter what that means for that person. It could mean I want to raise the bar and lose weight for my wedding. It could mean I want to raise the bar and increase my total. So
you're finding that to be specific enough inside of the marketplace.
For sure, especially when each one of our coaches has a personality.
Yeah,
like that really helps. Like our coaches are rock stars. Like we have, Liv is an IFBB pro, Jaden's an IFBB pro, Matilda trains like an animal, and that's absolutely crazy. Francesco is probably the most empathetic human being you'll ever meet in your life. And Carly is super bubbly, and when she actually decides to make content, it's always fantastic. So that makes it really, really easy for me. If I was hiring people who, I don't want to say anything derogatory, if I just hire boring people, like really, really vanilla people, yeah, I'd probably have an issue with it. But I'm really spoiled, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's awesome. I mean, that's always a challenging subject too, of do I bring them on as employees or can they operate as independent contractors? And it appears that you kind of have a little bit of the best of both worlds where, you're not directly responsible for, they're not an employee that's getting X amount every month, no matter what.
We also operate internationally, right? So for me to hire, Matilda lives in Melbourne.
Oh, interesting.
Jaden lives in Columbus. So for me to hire international employees would just be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
Much easier for me to do this. And actually for internet, so for Jaden, for example, he doesn't have to pay almost any taxes because he generates revenue from a Canadian company as a U.S. employee or as a U.S. incorporation. It's a really sweet deal.
Yeah, that is super interesting. So, I mean, for you guys, I mean, a piece of what you did then too is you kind of grew the coaching thing, and then the mentorship grew out of that. And was that just like continuing to kind of scratch the next itch, or does
it
that
wasn't
help?
Me, man? It wasn't me at all. Like the mentorship came mostly out of like people just kept asking me for it, and I think that comes from the fact that, you know, at the time I had been in coach. I've started coaching in 2000. I think I took my first personal training client in 2007. Started coaching my first people online in 2009 when I was doing combine prep. And so 2009, fast forward to 2022, when I started actually formally doing mentorship. That's 13 years.
Right.
So I had people ask me, hey, do you do mentorship? Do you do mentorship? And I was like, sure, let's do it. Okay, how much do you charge? I'm like, how much do you want to pay? And so it started off, I think the first formal mentorship I did was like $800 a month. But the rule is that if you wanted to be a mentee of mine, I had to coach you. So you had to see what coaching was like by me in order to be a mentee of mine. And then I realized, hey, this model doesn't really work. Then I went to, I think the first mentorship that I sold on a month-to-month basis was $3,500 for 3 months. And then kind of proof the concept. Okay, we'll go to 4,500. Okay, we'll go to 6,000. Okay, now it's at 7,500. And the reason I set those prices is as my confidence grew in my ability to deliver for the client, I know that at the end of a mentorship with me, at the end of 3 months, if you do everything that I espouse, you'll be able to get at least 5 new clients at a certain price point and keep them for a certain amount of time. That by the end of the time working together, you'll have made back the money from the mentorship. And until I gain the confidence that, okay, I can probably deliver more, the price point's going to stay where it is.
Right.
But that for me mentally, even me mentally charging what I charge, it was tough to set that price point and sell a $7,500 product with a straight face. Cause I'm like, I have the same mental roadblocks as everyone else, right? I'm like, can I deliver on this? But at this point, we've had, I think, the 39th person who's just gone through the mentorship. All of them are pumped, and anyone who's done the work has had the payoff.
Right.
I'm good with what I charge. So when I say, hey, it's $7,500, I can shut my mouth and wait for a response, knowing that I'm confident in my offer.
Right. Speaking of retention, what are you seeing as retention for the coaching business? How long are you guys retaining clients?
On average, between 10 and 11 months.
Okay.
And that's including all the people who do 3 months and stop.
Right.
So that's everyone.
Yeah.
It's at least 10 months.
So, I mean, from your vantage point in the industry, what are you seeing as like the average for retention in the online coaching world?
To factor in everyone and everything.
Yeah, new like the coaches months. And so what do you think that you guys are doing differently that allows you to triple that essentially?
It's relationships.
Yeah.
And I wish there was some fancy or like metric or some little tool or little trick that I use. It all comes down to relationships and results. Our clients get results because they're fully invested in the process, because our coaches are fully invested in our clients. And when you have a relationship built on that, you also remove the direct relationship between I'm paying to talk to so-and-so. We also market our coaching as a service, not a product. When I say product, you immediately assume that there's a time-limited nature to this relationship. So why would you invest yourself in someone else knowing that there's an end date to our relationship? You wouldn't. But if you know that, hey, this is a utility that I'm paying every month, that I'm investing into myself, and the other person on the other side of that screen is just as invested in me as I am in myself, it completely changes the nature of the relationship. And the further you can get the client's mentality from I'm paying for a service to I'm in a relationship, the higher your retention rates are going to be.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is room for opportunity.
It's badass. It's fucking awesome. Over deliver. They talked about it and they definitely did it.
is amazing. It's just been invigorating.
Is exemplary. It's phenomenal and just a great time with great people. And you feel like in Ohana, you feel like a family.
It's unreal.
is awesome. What will help separate the 1% from the 99% is a really well thought out event, well conceived, well planned, and well executed.
It's such an amazing event to be at in order to grow your business and network with other professionals.
It is top tier. It's one of the best I've been to in the business. It's been unbelievable, and I'm just excited to finish out the day here and keep making connections.
It's an event that you will be very happy that you have attended because next year is going to be even better than this one.
Is freaking badass. If you're not here, you're missing out. See you next year.
I mean, so is there anything that you guys talk about as a team on how you guys can build better relationships? Or is this just, hey, we've just got great people on our team and they understand what human connection is? Mm-hmm. And so like, is this a trainable type skill is kind of what I'm getting at.
I think it is. And we talk a lot in our meetings about the conversations that we're having with our clients, how we interact with them, the speed of our replies, the nature of our check-ins and our Loom videos and the types of language that we're using, the way that we meet our clients where they are instead of trying to fit them, fit a round peg in a square hole. Actually, a round peg would fit in a square hole. A square peg in a round hole.
I mean, it depends how big the peg is. I mean, all of it's relative.
You're picking up what I'm putting down here. So a lot of what we talk about in our meetings is creating those relationships. And I think a lot of that is built on the systems that we use to coach. Mm-hmm. So even with using Coach Catalyst and having those communities and having that one-on-one conversation in the DMs, that makes it really easy to stay connected and close to the client. Not only that, but the accountability of the activities and filling out check-in sheets and things like that. During the week, I speak to all of my clients probably almost every day or every other day. At least a message here or there or a video to review or something like that. So that's a very close relationship. Like I don't even text my mom every other day or every, and I love my mom. She's like one of my best friends. Hell, even some days I don't text Liv. She's upstairs, but I mean, you get what I'm saying.
So, because I mean, this is a real thing. I think a lot of coaches, when they move from the offline space into the online space, like they kind of think it's just like, hey, workouts and nutrition, and like the client's going to get what they need to, and then we have retention rates of 2 or 3 months, right? But
I think too, it's like the way that you market your services, right? So, I think a lot of what I see, and I make like satirical posts about it, like, 21-day challenge, come in. It's like, if you're using a 21-day challenge to acquire new eyes to your business and kind of use it as a lead magnet, to me, the type of person to subscribe to a 21-day challenge is not the same type of person to invest in a year-long relationship to improve their life.
Right.
So that's why I don't even touch them. Same thing with 12-week fat loss program. It's like the type of person that is going to want to subscribe to that sort of program is not the type of person that is going to want to stay long-term. The disconnect that most people need to make is if you're keeping clients for a year at a time, like I have a client who's been with me since I was charging $50 a month. He now pays over $500. Never back.
Kudos to you for actually raising his years. Kudos to you to actually raising his rate. I've done a lot of these, and they're like, oh, my first client's still paying $50 a month, and now my current rate's like $600. It's like,
no. So that client's been with me for 8 years.
Right.
If I was doing 12-week challenges, he wouldn't have signed up with me in the first place. And so that to me, like everything needs to align. So if your goal is to increase retention and you're having good retention rates, you don't need a ton of acquisition because you're never losing people.
Right.
Like
right.
my roster was between, 70 and 80 people for like 3 years. And then when I dropped it to 50, it was between 50 and 60 for a year or two. And then I dropped to 45. Now it's been between 40 and 45 for the last year. And I don't do any active customer acquisition because my clients don't leave. If I look at my list of 40 people, I think 43 people now, every single one of them has been with me for at least 8 months.
Right.
Like 8 months being the shortest one, 8 years being the longest one. So if you're constantly focused on acquisition, maybe you're acquiring the wrong people.
Which is so I want to talk kind of staying in that realm, the lead gen piece. You said you have your coaches kind of each have their own kind of lead gen. How are you guys thinking about lead gen and what are you guys creating from a lead gen standpoint that's getting more of the right clients?
Right. So one thing that we do and that we're starting to do more of is really focusing on the ways in which we can get people more invested in us as people. Because the same way that, you want a client to be invested in their own journey, they have to know that you're the person who can solve the problem.
Right.
So we had done lead magnets, like free resources and things like that. What we're trying now is more of a push towards webinars and Q&As.
Okay.
So what we'll do is we'll run a landing page with a funnel to a webinar. And the webinar will be, so actually this evening at 7 p.m., we're hosting a fat loss and performance Q&A. So Jaden and I are signing on Zoom. We put out the registration link and I think we have 45 or 50 people registered. And we just do a quick turnaround, like a 1.5 week promotion for this thing. We run it and then we push everyone to it. The next one's going to be probably with Nat and we're going to run probably a first responders Q&A type style. And the reason I'm opting for Q&As and webinars over resources is because the people that are actually going to join are going to hear us speak.
Right.
And when they hear us speak and they ask us questions and they hear the way we respond in an empathetic manner, I think the quality of client is going to be higher. This is all just trial and error. It's only been in the last year that we've expanded our team. So we're still growing. We're still trying. When you get a ton of referrals, which we do, the quality of client's going to be high because the people referring you people are usually great already.
Right.
The last piece is the way that we present ourselves online is of people who care. So I love to use Liv as an example because when you go to her social media, her tagline is teaching you to become her, the woman you always wanted to be. She is saying that as a woman who has achieved the highest pinnacle in her sport, IFBB Pro, and she's showing people the challenges that she faces, how she overcomes the roadblocks, how she deals with the same mental barriers and limitations that women deal with. She is showing that level of empathy and vulnerability that her clients are looking for in a coach. She is directly showing people, I am just like you. I am able to overcome this and I can teach you how to do that too. Something that I was doing a lot when I was, before I exploded myself is, hey, listen, I deadlift over 700 pounds. I have a 6-pack and I run a $500,000 business. You can too. That's a pretty appealing offer for somebody.
Well, and it's going to speak to a very specific person, right? They're probably like a business owner or a high-level executive or something like that. They care about their health, right? They probably were an athlete at some point, right? Because 700 deadlift would mean something to certain people. Yeah, I think that's really it's good. It's really smart, and it's like few words but very impactful in what it says.
Yeah, and so if you market to that niche in specific and the type of person that you want to work with, Matilda is starting to find her voice on social media, something that we work on with her a lot, in that showing the vulnerability, showing that, hey, I still have struggles with, even though I built this amazing physique, I still have struggles with my relationship with food. Or, even though I'm a business owner and I coach other people, I still struggle with ADHD. And this is how I manage it. These are the tools that I use. And by showing that vulnerability for yourself and humanizing yourself, you make it more relatable for a client. If someone signs on and just looks at me deadlifting 700 pounds with a 6-pack, they're like, well, I can't do that. But the fact that, oh man, like I've been a fat kid my whole fucking life and I still did this and we run a really successful business, oh, that's a lot more relatable.
Right.
And I think too, like this injury thing, sharing the vulnerability behind that and the mindset associated with the recovery, I've gotten a whole new market of people who are just like, wow, like, I'd love to learn how you attack problems. And it's actually brought in a number of mentorship clients and like, man, you show a lot of resolve. I want to learn how to do that too. You just got to be able to share your own journey and humanize yourself and make sure that those messages are articulated in a way that you're bringing the right people who are invested in the right things to your page and to your stuff.
Right. Man, I love that. I think this is awesome. So we're going to wrap this thing up. I've got some rapid fire stuff. Did you look at the questions before this?
No, I didn't.
All right, sweet. It's going to be even better then. We'll run through some rapid fire stuff. So first one, taco, burrito, or quesadilla. I know you're Canadian, but like you got to have an
burrito.
Burrito? Are you like a volume?
Yeah, I'm a volume guy.
Yeah. Me too.
I'm a size queen.
Is like Mexican food in Canada like a kind of a big deal? I know you guys have Chipotle and that kind of stuff, but is it not like it is?
No, it's not a big deal. I mean, when we were in Texas last winter, like amazing.
Yeah.
We actually went out for Mexican food last weekend.
Okay. All right.
Destroyed my stomach, but totally worth it.
It's definitely worth it. All right. Next one. Any books or devices, anything under $100 that you use or recently purchased that has had like a profound impact on you?
Under $100?
Under $100. Yeah.
Could it be something that I purchased like a really long time ago?
Yeah,
and I
it
still
could be
reference
tech or
back
anything.
to?
Yeah, absolutely.
So my favorite book that I've ever read is called Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I read that book during one of the most challenging times in my life. And the premise of the book is about a company that owns a railroad. And the entire book is centered around personal responsibility and accountability. And fun story, I read that book during a really challenging time, and a friend of mine knew that. And he was gifted a first edition copy of that book, and he gifted that book to me. I didn't realize this. That book that I have that's sitting like, you can't see it on the screen, it's just off screen.
Yeah.
Is a $20,000 book. Yeah.
Because it's a first edition.
It's a first edition, but the actual book itself was like $7 or something.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
That book changed my life for sure.
That's cool. I love that. All right, next one. If you could be reincarnated as an animal, or if you were reincarnated as an animal based upon your personality, what animal do you come back as?
My bulldog pork chop. He is the kindest, sweetest little guy, but he is an absolute bull in a china shop. He's less than 18 inches tall. He's 70 pounds.
Okay.
And he's just the best.
How did you come up with the name Pork Chop? I mean, great dog name, by the way. But how did you come up with?
Oh, this side over here. So this guy over here was the first dog that I purchased on my own, and his name was Meatloaf the Frenchie. And then I got another French bulldog whose name is Beefcake. Beefcake is still with us. And then Pork Chop was when Meatloaf passed away. I got Pork Chop, named him Pork Chop.
You kind of sound like a protein guy. Like,
yeah. And so right now we have 3 dogs because Olivia has a bulldog boxer mix named Stella. So it's Beefcake, Pork Chop, and Stella.
That sounds like a really good like sitcom.
Yeah, it's terrific.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, last one. If you could break bread with any person, past or present, who do you sit down to have dinner with?
I don't know, man. Okay, really random one.
I love it.
I would want to sit down with my uncle Ibrahim. So for people who don't know, my dad is an immigrant from Lebanon.
Okay.
He came over when he was 26, and his uncle Ibrahim sponsored our whole family to come back from Lebanon to Canada during the Civil War. But he was a carpenter, and he built an entire church by hand. Like did all like the fine woodwork and everything like that. I would want to like see what it was like, what goes through his head when he's spending thousands of hours carving art out of wood.
So you said he's an uncle?
He'd be my great uncle. My dad's uncle.
Your dad's uncle. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
He passed away probably 15 years ago.
And so you did meet him?
I did meet him. Yeah.
Were you old enough to have the like, you know what I mean? Like, were you old enough to ask the questions, or was it just kind of, oh, hey, here's my great uncle, cool dude, built church, awesome?
No, I never got to ask him the hard questions, but he was very old when I was young. Like,
yeah.
I think his wife, so my great aunt, is like 91 or something like that.
Okay,
now.
yeah.
So he would have been in his 80s.
Yeah.
Back then.
Okay. Cool. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Well, if people want to find out more about you and kind of what you're doing, where do you live on the internet?
So you can find me on Instagram at Paul O'Neid. You can find Master Athletic Performance at Master Athletic Performance or at Coach's Corner U. That's on Instagram.
Sweet.
You can find me on YouTube at Paul O'Neid _MAP. Posting many more videos on there. And then you can find my podcast, the Coach's Corner U podcast, at Coach's Corner U on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, all that sort of stuff.
Sweet. I love it, man. All right, we'll make sure we put all that in the show notes. So, Paul, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, dude.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.